Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I want to start out by saying that I appreciate all the Spartans who have reached out to me over the last couple of days for their support. I'm here today to talk about our team and about our game against a very good opponent in Washington. Our focus and energy has been really good after these first two days of practice. And our job as a staff is to focus on our guys and get them ready and prepared for the game on Saturday. We had a team meeting on Sunday where I met with them, and I told those guys that, hey, man, we got to all come together in this time of adversity, and we have to be unified through the adversity so that we can, and then we need all our leaders to lead, not only the coaches, but the leaders to lead. And I told them they lead by love, encouragement, accountability, and discipline. So we have to lead. We all have to lead. This is a determined group. They worked very hard this offseason. They've worked very hard so far this season. Hey, we're 2-0, right? And they're still motivated and excited to move forward in this season. We have a mission to complete, so we're mission focused. With all that, I'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
Coach, you talk about leadership. Can you just talk about Coach D'Antonio, what that means about him coming back, and what are his duties as far as the week and then game day, if you could let us know about that? So
Coach D, that's my guy, man. First coach, he hired me into my first coaching job was with Coach D'Antonio at the University of Cincinnati back in 2004, and we were together 14 straight years. Did 3 years there at the University of Cincinnati, and another 11 here at Michigan State. And Coach D brings the calming presence, the wisdom, the knowledge of being a head coach, a very successful head coach at that. And so he's bringing all of that as our associate head coach. And so any and all ways he's willing to help with us, and that's what he's going to do. So he's helping in all aspects of the operation.
Harlon, you've been doing this for a couple decades, and this is obviously your first chance to be a head coach. Obviously the circumstances are not ideal. How do you, I guess, what's this like for you just personally and professionally to now be in that top spot and, obviously with an undefeated team and facing, a very good opponent this weekend in your debut?
I'm being totally honest here. I wanted to be the head coach at Michigan State, but not in this way, obviously. And so that's always been a goal of mine. I'm a Spartan through and through. Anybody that knows me knows that I am a Spartan. They will tell you that dude is green all day. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to be the head coach here. Again, not like in the circumstances. I think the players, I connect with those guys in a good way. And it's how I've been feeling personally is like this because of how it happened. You know what I mean? So, but I am really very, very, very excited about this coming week and this opportunity to show what I got.
Have you talked to Mel since?
I have not spoken with him.
Hello, Harlon. Lindsay Huddleston with Sports Psychology Solutions, SPS. I only say the name just to give you context for the question. From a mental health standpoint, you talked about some 20 years with Coach D. And 20 years ago, we didn't have social media that makes stories just take off like wildfire. So as it relates to your players, I know you got a great mental health staff, but how do you really connect with them to keep them mentally locked in, less distracted with all the things that's going on, and just using your past experience 20 years ago to now to really help them?
That's a great question. Currently, I'm meeting with all the players, all of them. Yesterday, I got 27 in. I'm going for another 20 plus today because I told them on Sunday I want to meet with everybody in the room. I started with the players individually. I'll go into the coaches, the support staff, training, everybody. Just so everybody's on the same page. Again, I keep talking about unity. And that's part of, I think, helping people mentally when we're all together and they know they have somebody to lean on and trust in. And so, when I was talking to them, and this was actually on yesterday, I should say, at the team meeting, I gave my story. I said, I'm gonna tell y'all my story really fast, so when y'all come in my office, you don't have to hear my story again. I wanna hear about you guys. And so we go 5 to 10 minutes just to get everybody. Of course, I know the defensive backs, obviously, and a lot of guys on the defense. I know the offensive guys as well, but not intimately like I would want to. So that's why we're meeting with everybody, let them know that I'm open and honest. I'm there for them anytime they want to come, along with the rest of the staff. And we have things set in place that where if they need to go get some extra help or what have you, it is set in place here at Michigan State.
Harlon, I know you and Alan go way back to your playing days. I'm wondering how the conversation went on Sunday when he approached you about being the acting coach. And had you previously had any conversations with him about this? He had mentioned about formulating contingency plans all the time. Had you ever had any inkling that should something arise that you would be in this spot?
I haven't. It's me covering up for Alan again, like I did as a player when we were players. I'm getting him now. He says that all the time. But no, I hadn't had really any other conversations with him. I have talked to Alan, I mean, this has been some years ago now, we're talking about not recently, about, hey man, I want to be a head coach, you know, and he knew that. He knew that was some part of my plan to become a head coach someday. And this was back in, actually, I tell you when it happened, I told him, I came back for Coach D'Antonio's daughter's wedding when I was at Florida State one summer, I think it was the summer of 2018. And I told him that at the reception. So I remember that, yes.
Coach, Alan is not here, kind of symbolically backing you up. Did you know he wasn't going to be here, and does that bother you at all?
No, that don't bother me at all, no. Alan and I go way, I mean, we know what it is, you know what I mean? There is nothing about that. Yeah, we're good.
Respecting your relationship with the players, can you kind of give us an idea of their reaction when you met with them on Sunday?
It was good. It was actually really good. And then talking with them, like I said, talked with 27 of them yesterday, and it was almost like they had a scripted answer, which fired me up, because when we were out at practice, I'm like, these guys, they're moving on. They're young people. They're resilient. They're going, and so they were confirming that, what I saw at practice. You know, Coach, we know what it is. Hey, we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep fighting. We're mission focused. Let's go. No, they pushing forward. Yes, yep. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Harlon, I got a couple things for you. I'm just wondering about the idea of, at this point in the season, how much can you change as head coach now? How much do you want to change? How much is continuity important for these guys? Where do you sort of sit on that idea of change versus keeping things the same right now?
Well, a lot of stuff is going to stay the same. Tough, disciplined, selfless, do your job. Those are things that are staples of Michigan State football. Since I've been a Spartan since 1985. Tough, disciplined, selfless, physicality. We're going to still talk about those same things. Playing smart, fast, and physical, that's who we are. And so from that standpoint, we're going to be pretty much, that's the foundation of it, and we're going to continue to build on top of that foundation.
And then I'm also just curious about your position and your meetings and individual drills and practices. Is that still you, or have you handed that off to somebody else while you're acting head coach now?
I love coaching DBs. I do. And so the individual part, I'll still go over there and throw balls and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to, it's been 2 practices. So I'm trying to wean away a little bit, but it's kind of tough. And Coach Saban never has left the DBs. Never has. He's always coached DBs. He's going to be with the corners and say he's going to be over there some kind of way. And so that lets me know that at least I can be in some capacity, help with the defensive backs. Very similar to Coach D'Antonio when we were here together.
When you're not, who's that guy?
Coach Jim Salgado and Coach Ross Ailes. Ailes has the nickels, and Jim have the nickels, the corners and the safeties if it came down to it. But absolutely, Coach Salgado.
Hey, Harlon, congrats.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you.
Your coaching resume is solid. I'm not sure why you haven't had an opportunity to be a head coach. Perhaps you've wondered that too. But is this a chance for you personally to meet the challenge and prove that you can lead a program and maybe get an opportunity to be a permanent head coach, perhaps even here if circumstances work out?
The way it's set up that way, Fred. I'm just being honest. That's just being honest about it. And I'm looking forward to this great opportunity that I'm having. And let's go. It's a great opportunity. I have desired to be a head coach since I became a college coach, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Your school is bleeding right now. Is this also an opportunity to kind of, you can't fix it alone, but to help bridge it and bring this thing back to where you think it should be?
Absolutely. Our Spartans, and they all, when I say this, all Spartans know what I'm talking about, and we always talk about the chip on the shoulder, hard work and tough. Let's go back to Coach Perlis, just hearing him saying things like that over and over. Tough, we're going to make them limp out the stadium. We're going to be the hardest hitting team. So we're tough. We're Spartans. We're resilient. And for another term that I tell people sometimes, I'm a dog. I'm a dog. Be a dog. We're going to push through this as Spartans do, as Spartans will, right? Spartans will. And we will push through this. We'll become better for it, like everybody does when they come out of adverse situations, that keep fighting and keep pushing through. So I expect that to happen.
Quick clarifying question. You said you haven't spoken to Mel since, when's the last time you talked to Mel?
Let's see, when Saturday was the game, right? So the last time I actually spoke with him.
Okay, and text?
He did text me. We text, and he was all in support of the team, of the coaches and the team.
And then my question's for the players. Can you reflect and have some empathy for what they have gone through in the last calendar year, what happened in the Michigan Stadium tunnel, mass shooting, and now this? I can't imagine there's a collection of college football players ever who have dealt with what these players have to deal with and have had to.
No question, and no disrespect, but Virginia was a tough situation also. Again, young people are very resilient. They just know how to push through. I mean, it's the life that they're living in. If you're on social media or whatever, it's something going wild and crazy all over the world that they're seeing. It's almost like they're immune to it sometimes. But you can't let them just walk away and act like nothing happened. You have to talk to them and dig it out of them, and they'll talk to you. They'll talk with you. But they are very resilient. And I pray for them all the time.
You played under and coached with, but you played under some of the best coaches ever. What do you take from them that helps guide you in this?
Attention to detail and discipline.
And from whom?
Nick and Belichick. Nick and Belichick, and then Coach D. All along the line. So those guys were on attention to detail and discipline big time. And it's kind of how my father never was my coach, but was very, very disciplined. Very disciplined. And so when I got with those guys, it was like, this is what I'm used to. You know what I mean? This is what I'm used to. Very detailed in the things, how he would teach me and coach me up, my father. And so that's the same way those guys were and are. So I've been blessed to be able to be under such great coaching. I mean, those two guys considered the best to do it in their college and pro, arguably.
Hey, Harlan, over here to your right.
Got you.
I'm just wondering, in the last few days, with your conversations with Mark, aside from the football talk, what kind of advice or thoughts has he shared with you about this opportunity? Because it's certainly one that you guys have shared, I think.
Absolutely. He's told me some things that you're going to go back to doing certain things that we did in the past. I told him, I said, I'm thinking about doing this. And then he said, how about this? And I can't share all this stuff. I don't want to share all of it. But I'm glad he's here. Love me some Coach D, man. I love Coach D. Again, I go back to 2004 when he first hired me. That was very equal when he hired me in 2004, January of 2004, to me getting drafted in April of 1990. It was close to that. I was that excited for him to give me an opportunity to coach down at the University of Cincinnati. So that's my guy, and we share a lot of things that I don't like sharing with everybody, but we talk a lot and we share a lot.
And then just to follow up, have you thought about what that's going to feel like for you, walking, running, whatever, out onto the field on Saturday?
I haven't. You just put it in my mind, though. But I hadn't really thought about it like that. No, I haven't. But when it comes, I can imagine it's gonna be great. It's gonna probably be a little emotional, but I'm gonna be cool. I'm gonna be cool. I promise. Yeah.
H, we talk about conversations with Mel and Mark. Have you heard anything from Nick?
I have not heard it, but I'm not surprised though. That's Nick, man. That's Nick. But Nick is great. I mean, my and I tell people this all the time. My foundation of coaching defensive backs is Nick Saban all day. Hence, Mark D'Antonio hiring me, Mel Tucker hiring me. We all speak Sabanese, so that's what it is. So that's how I got hired. And so, but he hasn't. But I know he's happy for me and would support me in any way if I called him. Yeah, Nick, you just got to know Nick. I know Nick since 1985. He's 30-something years old. Think about that.
We talk about coaches being busy. You're about as busy as you can get with this transition, and the team that's coming in here Saturday isn't bad. Have you spent much time, you and the staff, talking with players who are pledged, recruits, how they've reacted to this news?
Yes, absolutely. I've talked to all the defensive back commits for sure, and all the coaches have handled their positions. I'm going to then go behind the coaches at the other positions between today and tomorrow and talk to those other committed guys.
Any reactions or questions that have come up a lot?
They were really good. I can't say names, obviously, you know that, but they were really, Coach, we locked in with you. We're locked in. We're with you. And they had some questions and concerns early on. Hey, you know, what's going to happen, and just that and the other. And but they're all in right now. They're all in.
Harlon, over here.
Yes.
You mentioned sitting down with as many of the actual players as you could individually, and I'm wondering what sort of questions and concerns, sort of what has been something that's come up repeatedly, or something that was an interesting question or concern that came up during those conversations.
Got you. What they all kept saying was, I said, how you feel? My first question to them when they sit down, what's your feeling about the team? How's the team? We're good, Coach. We're good. We had a team-only meeting on Sunday prior to Alan Howler coming in to talk to us, and then you had the meeting behind that on Zoom. We're good. They all said, we talked about, hey, we're on a mission. We're on a mission, and we're going to complete this mission. And so let's do what we got to do. Let's lead. Let's support the coaches and go from here. And they all said that. So that was very, very encouraging for me, because that's a sign of the unity that I was talking about. And so, but anything other than that interesting, no. I think if I had to say this, a couple of them might say, when it first happened, I was a little like, what's going on? You know, but once we had that player-only meeting, it seemed like they all got back on solid ground. They were a little shaky at first, and when they had the players-only meeting, they got back on solid ground.
Harlon, yeah, I was kind of wanted to go off of that a little bit, just in terms when you met with each player individually, if anybody had said anything to you about if they were sad or angry about what had happened, and then, you know, just kind of rallying together in that sense.
Sad and angry never came up as the first 27 guys that I've spoken with, and those guys have all been the older guys as well. We tried to work with the older guys and working way down to the younger guys, but no sad or angry. Sympathy for Coach, but other than that, they were great.
And then just want to follow up real quick. You do have a lot of religious players on your team this year. They're very spiritual, the ones that we've been able to speak with as well. So how do you maybe hope?
I am too.
How do you hope then that maybe some of that, you know, you mentioned everyone needing to come together to lead. How do you think that can bring people together?
I think it'll bring people together perfectly. The ultimate way to bring people together. So something we used to do with Coach D'Antonio was when he was here every day, every day after practice, everybody come up and he'll say, who got it? Somebody would pray. And so we did that yesterday. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to bringing that back. And when I say who got it, somebody was like, I got it. You know, a lot of times it's quiet and they wait, well, I got it then, you know what I mean? But it was immediate. So that's an awesome thing.
Harlon, I understand from Sunday's press conference that Coach D is going to wear headsets
Yes.
My question to you is his role less X's and O's and more to be a calming influence on this team and on you?
Bingo. Bingo. But you haven't been doing this for so long, Fred, that you can figure things out. But yes, that's what it is more than anything. That's what it is. That's exactly, I couldn't say it better.
And he was open arms with this, right?
Yeah, you already know it. Yes. Because he looked at me as like, that's one of my guys. So I'm going to come back and support one of my guys. And so, Coach D, since he's been retired in the summer, he goes around, he goes to Pitt, he goes to wherever Luke is, he comes here.
He was at some of your practices.
Yes, so he's been doing that. He supports his guys.
This is a two-part question, some you'll get used to. The first part, I'm wondering, do you have any injury updates on particularly Windman, Berger, and Mangum?
So y'all just, I told them, this is fine, I even have to laugh, but I've been around Belichick. So I'm giving Belichick answers to injuries. He's day to day.
I anticipated that. The second part of it was more of a football question as well. Your first challenge is to face Michael Penix, who you faced a couple times now. Mm-hmm. In the overseer role, do you take more of an onus and emphasis on that, knowing what he did last year against you guys, and how do you kind of get the guys away from their minds on the situation and more on the football at this point?
Well, like I said, after they had that meeting they talked about on Sunday, they've been focused. They're locked in. They know what the challenges that are ahead of us with Penix, and he's a really good football player. Really good football player. Tough to keep bouncing back from injury like he does and go out there and play like he's been playing. Dude's a player. And so we know what the challenge is before us. We're looking forward to the challenge and can't wait for Saturday.
I got two questions. Obviously, Week 5 is an important time in the college football calendar. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, especially related to the transfer portal and the redshirt rule and everything. How much are you involved in re-recruiting the roster? I mean, how much of that is an emphasis just to kind of keep guys in the fold going forward?
That's always an emphasis. I mean, you never stop recruiting. And so that's always an emphasis, even through Sunday. I mean, I've only been doing this for a few days, but you never stop recruiting. You're always recruiting. Even the guys that, like you said, already in the fold, you're trying to keep them in the fold and then going after others. And so that's part of recruiting. That'll never change.
And, I guess with Washington as it relates, I mean, I guess Stellan Tatum referred to you guys kind of still playing quite a bit of off coverage, I guess. Do you see yourselves playing more press man going forward? And do you think that particularly would be important against Washington, considering to reroute the receivers and such?
Well, we'll mix it up like we've been doing. I know what you've been seeing, but we'll mix it up. We've been mixing it up pretty good, and like we always done. And we're going to try to put our guys in the best position to make plays. So that's what it's really all about, and to be successful.
Harlon, I was wondering, you kind of touched on Mark's role. He was the head coach here when Penix, was playing. I mean, it seems like a million years ago, but how much input can he have with his knowledge and obviously experience with a staff that has a defensive core? Most of the staff he has not worked with, but just kind of what his role is in providing input in a situation where he has knowledge of a very talented player.
Our staff is a really good staff. Elite staff is what I told them in the meeting the other day. We have an elite staff, and so nobody has an ego where we're always trying to take in information. I think that's what all smart guys do, in my opinion, people. Taking in information. So any information and all information that he provides, people are locked in and listening because we want the advantage. We want to win, right? And so everybody is open to hear what Coach D has to say at all times.
We have a couple more, George, and then Steve.
Harlon, you obviously have a wealth of football knowledge.
based upon who you've played for and who you have coached with. I don't know how much these young men know about you as a player. Did they know your nickname was the Bang Stick? And have they seen any highlights of you hitting people? I don't know. That might fire them up. I mean, nobody tackled it. I figure you and Charlie Thornhill were the hardest hitters I've ever seen around here.
Let's
put a highlight tape together.
You know, I don't. That's not my personality. What I did say the other day, I just went fast on my story with them. I told them. So when I meet with them for 5 minutes, they at least have a knowledge background. But all I said was where I was. I went real fast and got through it, and that was it.
I know you're a humble guy, but that might fire them up to see some of those tackles.
I appreciate that, George. Thanks.
Harlon, just going off an earlier question, just with the way college football is now, has anybody in these last couple of days come to you and said, I am going to, I want a red shirt, or I want to shut it down, and, they want to sort of remove themselves from that, or has that been communicated to you at all?
Not one. Nope, nobody has.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Audrey talked about faith a minute ago. Who and what are you praying for this week?
Who and what am I praying for this week? This week in particular, I'm praying for all those impacted by the situation. All those impacted by the situation. I'm praying for our guys to be able to come out and play to the max of their God-given talents, gifts, and abilities. And I'm praying that, I pray this all the time too, that the visiting team gets here safely and gets back home safely. Those are my prayers. Some of them, not all of them.
We appreciate your time. The issue so far this year, small sample size. What are you seeing on third down conversions?
That's not what I was expecting you to ask, but we'll start with that one. I was ready. I had it right here. Dave Biddle. Who's the starting quarterback? Okay, gonna have to move that one down, Dave. Yeah, third down. We found ourselves this year so far in some 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 3s that we haven't converted on offense. And we got to get it fixed. We got to do a better job of that. We're just been in some situations where we haven't executed very well. In those situations, we expect to. And 3rd and long, 3rd and extra long, different story. But 3rd and medium, 3rd and short, we got to keep drives going. Are we doing 2 questions? Yeah. So after reviewing the film, we've decided that Kyle's going to be the starter, and that make that distinction. We still plan on playing Devin, but we feel like Kyle has really stepped up to and deserves to be the starter. So we're going to go ahead and make that distinction.
All right, 4th row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic.
Ron, when you looked at the film, what stood out about Kyle for you to make that decision?
Yeah, just the overall consistency that I think he's been playing with. He made some nice throws. He kept the offense going. He came out of the gates playing efficient football, and that's what we're going to look for moving forward. But I would just say overall consistency.
Sometimes the outside narrative is that it's just Youngstown State, but when you have a quarterback who's making his 3rd career start, seeing even just incremental progress, right. What does that do for his confidence?
Yeah, I think it's building. You can see, I think, regardless of the opponent, when you play in Ohio Stadium and you get your 2nd start, you have to see how people are going to react. I thought he was much more poised in this game than the first one, and I think that's natural. So again, we'll see if we can build on that. But like you said, bigger challenges ahead.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
What will Devin's role be moving forward? Do you know? Do you want to get him out there, still schedule drives, or is it just whenever you get a chance?
Yeah, we'd like to. We'd like to get him out there and play. I think it depends on the opponent, depends on the strategy. There's a lot that'll come into play each week. I don't think it'll be something that we do the same thing every week, but we'll look at the opponent, we'll look at the situation, we'll look at the schematics of it all, and see where he fits.
How important is this week for Kyle to get out there and have one full game as the starter before going to South Bend?
I think it's important for everybody to play well this week. We have to keep upgrading and keep playing. Kyle's no different, but I think we all want to have a great week of work, and we all want to keep getting better. And now we're getting into game 3, so want to keep building and growing. I think it's a really important week for us.
5th row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Brett, when you reviewed the film, what did you like from the offensive line, and what still concerns you about those 5 players?
Yeah, I thought the protection overall was solid. I think They gave Kyle, some good time. Got to keep building on that. I thought their effort and their finish was much better, and there was some good plays where I thought we came off the ball, but again, overall consistency is something that we're working on, and we got to get better. But there was some improvement there. But we expect on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 to execute, to get first downs, and there was a couple penalties in there as well. So got to clean those things up.
With Josh specifically, when he shows progress in blocking but then has the penalties, how do you keep his mind right and make sure that he knows that, hey, you're still on track to do some things that we want you to do?
Yeah, it's constant communication, and that's on us as coaches to make sure that we're doing the right things that he can do, and allowing him to play free and not worry about making mistakes, but at the same time think clearly and be able to put his best foot forward and put his best play on the field. If we're doing too many things that we got to cut back, if we're not doing enough to put him in a situation to be successful, then we have to look at that. And he has to just keep growing. But the more he plays, the better he's going to be. The talent's there.
Far right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, you've expressed some frustration several times now about the shortening of the game, the fewer the plays. That's not changing. If you had a chance to talk to your staff about what can you do differently to take advantage of this?
I think it's just on a week-to-week basis. I think we're in for a different challenge this week. This week you're going to see a team that throws the ball a lot more, plays faster, different challenge. So we'll just take it on a week-to-week basis. And listen, the bottom line is, if we get off the field or we convert on 3rd downs, then we're moving more efficiently, and that's got to be the goal. But we do talk about what teams' goal is on each side of the ball and how they plan to attack us, and so we have to adjust and adapt based on who we're playing. And this week will be a different challenge.
You said also that it's guys deserve to play. That's got to be hard as a coach when guys don't get to play. And how hard is that? Can you describe talking to guys that don't even get in a game because mainly of this shortened game?
Yeah, I think they understand, but they want to get on the field. They came here to play, and we want to get them in the game. And the guys that deserve to. There's some guys that are still young that are working their way up, and the goal is that by the end of the season we have really good depth at all positions, and so that's where the growth during the season and the work that we have to put in. We're going to be a lot different team now than we are in a couple of weeks, and vice versa. So I think that it's going to be important to try to get as many guys in the game as we can, but at the same time we got to get the guys who are starters and the first string guys in there to get enough reps to continue to build.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Brian, is there anything that can make an offensive line sort of more adept to zone schemes versus gap schemes or vice versa? And have you observed anything about your line relative to that in these first 2 games?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Some teams, like you said, some guys are built more for gap schemes. They're just the size of the guys. Usually the bigger, stronger guys are a little bit more of the gap schemes. More athletic teams usually do a little bit more of the zone schemes. I think our guys can do both. I think they have the size and the athleticism to do both. And when you can change up what you're doing against the defensive line, where one time you're down blocking on them, the next time you're really zone reaching them and creating space, you're putting them in stress. But that's only if we're fitting them up right and we're hitting them right. I do think there was some good hits on Saturday. I do, but not nearly consistent enough.
It seemed like compared to the Indiana game, maybe you guys were a little more inside run focused against Youngstown State. Is that just a product of the opponent, or are you just trying to work through some stuff? Is that perhaps something you think you guys might do better? What was the thought process?
Once in a while, you got to just say, hey, we're gonna run the ball up the middle and make 4 yards and then do it again. That's part of growing a team and building a team. I thought, we did a nice job a couple times of getting the ball to the perimeter and creating some explosive plays, but ultimately, we also have to run the ball inside the tackles. So there's a little bit of both going on there, especially in a game early in the season.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, in the process of getting your starting quarterback, how much of an impact do you think that has had on 3rd downs and offensive efficiency?
Yeah, the quarterback is a huge part of that. As we know, the quarterback really gets judged on 3rd down in the red zone. Opportunities to throw the ball down the field, in play action, and create explosives, decision making. But yeah, I mean that's going to be a big part of it, and the timing and all that. But I think that there's been enough this year in that third and medium, 3, 4, 2 that we haven't converted on that we got to help them with.
Has that been more of an offensive line thing, or like what?
I don't think you can point to one thing, but that's what happens. When you have some inexperience there, it's one thing here, one thing there, and you add those up, then you're not as efficient as you'd like to be. So we've met as a group, we've talked about it, and we're going to try to give them a good plan and go after it again this week.
Sports. Going back to Rob's question about the clock and the rules, you obviously dealt with similar rules in the NFL. I know it's been quite a while since you were there, but how much can you draw back on your experiences of being an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, that to help?
Yeah, I just think it's a totally different game. Even I threw on a little bit of that Jets game last night and just watched it. It just you break the huddle at 15, and just the numbers aren't as big in that league as it is in college. And it's just very different that way. They play the game in the middle of the field. You really don't see any teams in the NFL go no huddle. Most of them are huddling for the most part. And so it's just different. There's just not as many plays in the NFL as there is in college. More games in the regular season. So just different. Yeah.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just more on the clock thing. As a play caller, you have certain things that you're trying to get done on the drive, certain things you want to get done in a game. How have the clock rules maybe affected what you want to run on game day? And also, do you feel like when you call something, it has to be more maximized than maybe in the past?
Yeah. There's no question. It has to. We've talked about that as a team. It has to be more efficient. We got to come out of the gates and be efficient. I thought we did that. In the first quarter, we took the ball and we were. How does it affect a game like it was on Saturday? You're trying to play fast. We're trying to play fast. They're trying to play slow. That's just kind of the back and forth of it all. When we start getting into some different games down the road, that's not going to be the focus. The focus will be on winning the game. But we tried to get as many plays as we possibly could.
So your numbers, just your efficiency numbers, are maybe down from the last couple of years. It's only 2-game sample, so I understand that. But is the lack of efficiency just trying to adjust to the clock situation, or is that an execution problem?
No, I just think that there's less at bats right now, and it's also based on our opponents and the way that they played the game. It was a little bit probably like playing, some of the service academies. They're running the ball, and that's smart by them. It's good by them. It's just a different style of game. I think about maybe some of the games in the past that we were playing against no huddle teams that threw it. Sort of like the team that we're going to play this week, so it'll be, but it'll be a different feel, we think, this week if things go as planned.
Third row left, Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, and for 2 games, the defensive ends haven't had any sacks. Is there anything you're seeing on film of just why they're not being able to get to the quarterback right now?
Again, I think it's just going to be a different situation this week with Western Kentucky. They're going to throw the ball a lot more than our last 2 opponents. And they're going to play fast and try to spread us out. I think they do an excellent job. I mean, it's going to be a big challenge for our defensive line. It's going to be a challenge for our defense. They do a great job on defense and try to change up the look. So schematically, we'll get stressed out. So this is a good challenge for us, and I think we'll have a better feel about that coming out of this game.
How important do you think it is for the success of his defense going forward for those guys to be getting pressure on a consistent basis?
Yeah, everything starts up front on both sides of the ball, and one of the things that the defensive line and Larry takes a lot of pride in is getting the pressure on the quarterback. So there's going to be an opportunity this week doing that because of how much they throw the football, and they have a really good quarterback and a really good scheme. So it goes hand in hand with the coverage. If the coverage is really strong, then the quarterback has to throw the ball or hold the ball longer. If the coverage is loose, the ball comes out a little sooner. And it's the same thing with the D line. They have to, rush. If they're not getting to the quarterback, he can hold on to it longer. They have to work together. And so, again, different approach this week than what we've seen in the last couple.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, you just talked about some of the ways Western Kentucky is very impressive. Of course, you're not going to overlook a team, but with Notre Dame next week and what this Western team can do, how dangerous are they at this point in your season?
Well, I think for us, we know, areas that we have to improve, and we have some guys that haven't played a whole bunch of football, and then we have, some other guys who, really are looking forward to take the next step in their development. So, I don't see it as that at all. We're not there right now. We got to keep building and growing, and in all three phases. So I don't see it like that at all. We got a lot of respect for what they do, and watch the way they played Auburn last year, and I mean they'll put stress on us. So we got an opportunity to go out and try to play our best game of the year, and that's really what matters, and then we'll go from there.
For those who don't know much about Western Kentucky, what about head coach Tyson Helton and what they do offensively just really impresses you?
Probably that they work off of each other. You can clearly see there's a plan on both sides of the ball on what they want to do. They want to throw it and score a whole bunch of points, and the defense kind of works with the offense the way that they're set up. So impressed with that. They have an identity.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Just to clarify, by naming Kyle the starter, how does that change the practice week? I assume Devin said they were still splitting reps pretty much 50-50 last week. How does that change, and how do you envision that helping Kyle be better?
Yeah, well, I think first off, it gives Kyle first off peace of mind that I think he realizes that he is the starter and he's earned that opportunity. Secondly, he will receive more of the reps. Devin will still get reps in practice. He'll get reps with the ones, but Kyle will get a little bit more than he has the last couple of weeks. And I think it's good for the team to have that distinction, to know that Kyle right now is the starter.
You said back in spring, and maybe even as early as February, when you were talking about this process, that you were looking for a special treat. What's common core special treat?
I mean, I think right now, it would be consistency overall. Just, we've talked about managing the game in terms of making routine plays routinely, not making bad plays worse. And then when you have an opportunity to go make that play on third down in the red zone, we got to go make it. And I think he's starting to learn how that works, how the game works, the preparation, and those type of things. And if we can keep building on that, then I think you'll see more and more play. Accuracy is another thing that he's missed a couple throws, but we see accuracy in him that has a chance to be special as well.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, when you realized or saw the stat sheet, when you saw Travion's carries, what did you think of that?
I would love to see him get more touches, yeah. But then again, when I looked at everybody, I wish they had more, yeah.
It's like we spent coming out of the first week like, well, Marvin's got to touch it more, and then week two, now we're talking about Travion. I realize there are a lot of mouths to feed, and then the efficiency plays into this as well. How much, when you're building or designing a game plan, do you have it in your mind, X number of touches for somebody?
We try to do, let's look at the schematics of it all and figure out, here's a play that we think we run that fits against this defense. We put it up on the board, and then at the end we'll say, okay, how is this all shaken out? Is it heavy one side or another? And what we're not going to do is compromise what's best for the team just to make sure that everyone's touching the ball in a certain game. You saw in the first game, Julian and Cade got a bunch of touches. The next game, Marv got some more, and that's pretty normal of the way it goes. So, we try to be aware of it, but at the same time, we're not going to let it affect, how we're doing our day-to-day stuff.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, have you faced an offense that's at all comparable to Western Kentucky in terms of just the volume in which they throw over the last few years?
I felt like maybe a few years back against Indiana, they were throwing it a bunch, with Penix. I feel like they were throwing it a lot that year. You guys probably remember more than I do, but this is a little bit unique.
Is there anything you can draw on some of those, maybe like just some of Jeff Brom's teams? Is there anything you can draw on some of those teams you've faced before? That I know you don't typically face air raids a ton in the Big Ten, but is there anything you can draw on those games that can help here?
Yeah, and I think Jim has probably a little bit more of a background with it being, coming from the Big 12 for a couple of years and seeing some of those styles of defense. And our styles of offense and going up against them. So he's got a pretty good, experience with those guys. So had some good conversations with him, and I think he's got a good plan.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Do you think this is good prep for Notre Dame just in terms of Hartman being an accomplished guy?
I think so, yeah. I think it's a good challenge for our guys. I do. I think it's a good challenge for all of us. So looking forward to getting to work and getting, it's a 4 o'clock game for us. We got the night game the next week. So, we played the noon game this past week. So I think, you're hitting a couple different times. You're hitting a couple different schemes, different styles. We've had a game on the road. So it's been good. It's been a good start for us. But now, going into the third week, we got to ratchet it up even more.
Are you sounding a warning that, hey, we can't worry about next week today?
I just don't think that that's where we're at right now. I just think that we're one day at a time, growing every day. We know we want to play our best football at the end of the season, but we got to get better like now, and that's the message.
John, WDNS?
Schedule only gets tougher. What areas do you want to, have you circled this week that you got to be better at?
Well, the third down is something that just statistically jumps out, but it's all areas. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that we're a finished product in any one area. If you name off all the different areas in the team, we're trying to get better. We know that we're not where we need to be. But it's like we say, it's 1.0, 2.0. This has got to be 3.0. This is going to be our third version of ourselves, and it's got to improve because now you're on film for 2 weeks, and teams do a great job, coaches do a great job of scheming you up, and ultimately it comes down to playing really, really hard and competing, and running around and tackling and playing with great emotion.
Did you see the improvement you wanted to see in the running game from your O-line?
No. Pretty high standard. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's anything that I'm, content with right now. We got a long way to go in all areas. We just got to keep growing and building, and I think that's a good approach to have. To stay hungry every week.
Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom, 11 in a row.
Ryan, you mentioned last night's NFL game. It's just another reminder that, we're one play away of playing for the quarterback. And how did Devin take the message and distinction with Kyle being the starter? And what do you need to see from his development to know that he's ready to?
Yeah, Devin's a great competitor. He wants it really bad. And, he knows that he's one play away, like you said. And he was great. But at the same time, he's got to get back to work this week and get better in the areas he needs to improve on, and we've talked about it. I think it's just the overall consistency for him. You can see it, but he hasn't played a lot, so we're going to try to get him more and more experience, and hopefully the next time he gets out there, he's a little bit more poised and has a feel for the game because the talent is certainly there.
Right in front of him, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
In the offseason, you talked about kind of stepping away and trying to have more of a hand in everything in this building. I guess almost 3 weeks into the season, how would you grade your ability to do that? Are you even still focused on doing that, or have you kind of reverted back to that?
No. I think that I'm definitely doing that better and more than I have in the past. But at the same time, we have young quarterbacks, and we got to continually work through the beginning stages of the season. So pushing hard in that area as well. Long days, but that's okay. That's part of the job. But I think certainly Quinn Temple has really helped with that a lot. He's taken a lot of those things off of my plate just in terms of the overall management of the building. And then, having, Brian and Justin and Joe Philbin and Todd Fitch, to try to help out with the offense has done, they've done a really good job of helping me in that area as well.
I know you said that it would be easy to do in the off season, but it gets kind of harder in the season. I guess, does it change at all in these 3 weeks, or have you stayed pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's changed a little bit, but at the same time, it's what you got to do to get the job done, and to win games, and a big part of that has been the way we do things on offense. So, going to stick with that, and the more and more the guys can take things and run, the more that I'll delegate.
Front row, Tim May on 3 and the Tim May Show.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. Ryan, when did the decision hit you that this was the time and the moment? Were you eating dinner, eating breakfast? Were you watching video? I'm talking about naming Kyle the bona fide dude.
I felt like it after the game. I just didn't feel like it was the right time until we reviewed the film. But I just felt like after the game there was just an overall poise and consistency that just I think led us all to think that, okay, Kyle's the guy right now.
And he seemed to throw the ball with more authority on Saturday. Do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah. He had some that came out with a lot more confidence for sure.
Yeah. And the sneak peek you've taken, at least, of WKU and their offense, Austin Reed in particular, the quarterback, what jumps out at you about him? The way he led the nation in passing last year, pretty close.
Yeah, his story is pretty interesting, where he came from, and just in terms of wasn't a highly recruited guy. He's had to earn everything he's had to get, and that's usually the right recipe for a really good quarterback. But he's accurate. He gets the ball out of his hand. You can tell he's very, very intelligent, has good vision. So, really good challenge for our defense this week. I mean, they're going to come after us, and I think for the D line, for the secondary, all of the above schematically. Looking forward to getting going this week and seeing how it plays out on Saturday.
Deep center, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals, podcast.
Ryan, there was a lot of focus all offseason about leadership, the committees, the finding guys to step up and be that guy. A lot of the guys that have been picked, Cade, Xavier, Tommy, these are guys that are quiet guys on the outside looking in. You guys obviously see practice, you see a lot more than we do. Is there any concern that there's not a vocal enough presence in the locker room or on the field? It seems like there's just a little bit of a flatness at times, because that's just the way those guys are. It's not a knock, but is there something more you're looking for?
I think Tommy does have a pretty strong voice out there on the field. I agree with you. I think off the field he's a man of few words, but on the field, I mean, you can feel him, you can hear him. He has passion, he has intensity. I mean, he runs the defense out there. I think Mike Hall really, you feel him. You feel him on the field. I think Travion Henderson has done a really good job. I mean, you feel his intensity every day at practice. You feel him on the field. And so that's great. And I think the more, some of the other guys, the more that they continue to build confidence this season, you'll start to see that more and more. But it's there. I like the way Cade played in the first game. I like his leadership out there. I think sometimes with the offensive line, you're used to having maybe some older guys there. When you have 3 new starters there, you don't get as strong of leadership because they're still trying to figure it out. I think as they get more and more confident, you'll start to see those guys step up.
Feel that like.
So first of all, obviously with September 11th and everything that's gone on in our country and the fact that it was 22 years ago is kind of mind-blowing to me. I remember I was at the University of Maryland, and I think a lot of people forget that the Pentagon had gotten hit as well. We don't really talk about that as much, and we had a number of former players and players' parents that were at the Pentagon. So that memory is burned into my mind. So just wanted to take a minute and recognize that. And how fortunate we are for the men and the women and the first responders and people that serve our communities and serve our country. So we're very, very appreciative of that and don't take it for granted. In terms of our last game, again, phenomenal crowd, especially when you consider the fact that it was a 12 o'clock game. We were supposed to get bad weather. And right now, I think after 2 games, we're averaging 109,661 fans, which is great. We go to Illinois, which is a tradition around here, opening on the road in the Big Ten. We love it. I actually called Pat a little bit ago, and I think they're talking about coming out with the new schedule. So, we're going to try kind of reverse psychology and ask to be on the road this year and see what happens. This coming up year. But it's going to be an orange out. Should be a great atmosphere. I think last year we opened at Purdue. It was a blackout. I think we went to Auburn. It was an orange out. So it'd be a great environment for college football. We're looking forward to it. When you talk about just kind of some of the summary of the last game, offensive player of the game was Drew Aller. Defensive player of the game was Dom DeLuca. And then special teams was Alex Felkins. And then our D-squad players of the week was Jack Lambert and Liam Powers with the offense, Jace Tuddy and Kavion Keys with the defense, and then Jace Tuddy also on special teams. Jace is doing a really good job for us, a young man out of Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Some more notes, just some positives on that game. We talked about getting better, the importance of getting better each week. And if we do that, we'll like where we're at come the end of the season. And we talked about getting better specifically in the metrics. that we measure and talk about each week. You know, for example, early in the season, missed tackles, missed assignments. We went down in both of those categories. Really cool. We were able to play 80 players in the game. As you guys know, some of our veteran starters really only played a handful of plays in the game, which is great. Defensively, we were able to get off the field. We had 10 3-and-outs. We had 2 turnovers. You combine that with the offense being really efficient. In today's college football, to say that our offense had 91 plays in the game is really unusual. Really unusual. I thought special teams, we were more consistent, specifically with how we kicked the ball. Real positive for us is starting fast. And the last 2 games, the offense has started the opening drive of the game with a touchdown. And then middle 8, we were able to score a really nice 2-minute drive with no timeouts at the end of the half, and then start the second half with a touchdown as well. So 14 points there in the middle 8. Areas for growth: situational football, situational football, situational football. It's 4th and 1. We go punt safe. They go hard count. We jump off sides. The whole reason for going punt safe and 4th and 1 is to anticipate and expect a hard count and not jump off sides and give them a first down. In some ways, that equates to like a turnover. We were getting the ball back, and we gave it back to them. And then too many free yards. We were excellent the week before in penalties, and then we weren't as good this past week when it came to penalties, so we got to get that cleaned up. On to Illinois and Coach Bielema. Obviously, he's got a ton of history as a head coach, and specifically a head coach in the Big Ten Conference. I've known Brett for a while. He goes on the Nike trip that me and my wife go on as well, him and his wife. So we've gotten to know him both personally and professionally. Got a ton of respect for him and what he's been able to do. I think it's also helpful. You got 2 head coaches in the Big Ten that have been head coaches in the SEC to sort of have that perspective in our conference meetings, I think is helpful. The defensive coordinator, Barry Looney, you talk about them and what they do. Excuse me, I said defensive coordinator. I mean offensive coordinator, Barry Looney, and what they do. They're a spread team. 11 personnel is what they're going to base out of. They're trying to find ways to get the ball in the number 1's hands. Isaiah Williams, who feels like he's been playing at Illinois forever. And then I think the Luke Altmaier, the young man who transferred from Ole Miss, has really helped them. He came in the Toledo game and drove them right down the field, and I thought last week was able to make plays with not just his arm but with his legs as well. I think he had a 72-yard touchdown. And then defensively, Aaron Henry. As we know, Bielema's also involved on the defense. But they're a odd front or an Okie front defense. We've been impressed with their personnel. Been a lot of talk about their personnel all off season. Defensive end number 4, Jerzon Newton. Defensive tackle number 88, Keith Randolph. Linebacker number 8, Tariq Barnes. Defensive end rush number 17, Gabe Jackus. And then their nickel and corner number 14, Xavier Scott. And then their safety number 10, Miles Scott. Guys that we got a lot of respect for on tape. There was a lot of buzz about these guys in the preseason as well. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to compete against them. And then on special teams, Robbie Disher. And then obviously when you talk about personnel, their punter is an Australian young man who, as we know, there's been a bunch of Australians come over and have kind of taken over college football. And he's their punter, number 19, Hugh Robertson. And then again, their punt returner, Isaiah Williams as well. So it's going to be a really good challenge. Today will be our first time to really get on the field and practice in pads. We'll do that today and tomorrow. Get into our jog-throughs and walk-throughs on Thursday, then Fast Friday, and then we'll be getting on the plane and flying to Champaign. I think the game is 11 o'clock their time, 12 o'clock our time, so it'll come fast, and we need to be prepared for that. I've got a young roster with a bunch of young players. I'll be traveling for the first time and make sure that they understand what that is going to be like and the difference in travel and all the responsibilities that come with that, so that we can reduce distractions as much as possible. So open up to questions.
Let's go to Rich Garcella, and Mark, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks. James, how prepared, how equipped is Drew for this, his first road start?
Well, like I keep saying with Drew, he's doing all the right things and taking all the necessary steps. We expect it to be a challenging road environment, but we didn't wait until this week to prepare for that. Whether it's crowd noise or whatever it may be. We've done that all training camp. Obviously, we'll major in it this week as well. But again, he's doing all the right things in terms of preparation, in terms of watching film, in terms of nutrition, hydration, sleep. Getting more and more comfortable and confident in his leadership role on the team. So again, all these things are first, and it's hard for me to sit here and tell you what he will be like and what we will be like in these situations until we've been through them. So, for us, it's to do everything we possibly can to prepare as a team and specifically for Drew as well, to get him as prepared as we possibly can for what it will be like to be on the road. I do think his game last year at Purdue, was helpful. But most importantly, I want to make sure by Friday night when we're going to bed that we've done everything we possibly can to have him and the team prepared to go play and play well.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich, and then Frank, you're on deck.
Hi, James. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Good, man. How are you?
Appreciate it. Good, thanks. The 2021 season, did you go back and conduct any analytics of the Illinois game, specifically the overtimes? And if you did, are you using any of that analysis now? How is that benefiting you now?
Yeah, it's hard to do analytics on something that you don't have enough data on, right? I don't know if there's ever been and ever will be again a nine overtime situation like that. So it's hard to go back and say, well, I'm going to study the analytics in that situation because there's just not a whole lot of examples of it. I think obviously what it taught everybody in the country is you better have enough 2-point plays or low red zone plays that you have enough to go to if you get into a situation. Obviously, the interesting thing is the whole idea of the 2-minute rule changes is to avoid that. It didn't necessarily play out that way. So, yeah, we studied your normal 2-point play situations and overtime situations, but not necessarily back from 2021 in that game.
Frank Bodani, and then Mike, you're on deck.
Hi, James. Good afternoon.
Hey,
How
Frank.
are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Hey. Well, good. Drew told us about how he's really not he doesn't take to being the center of attention. That's not his style. That's not natural to him. How do you think he's taken on that part of his game, being a leader, growing in that way, handling those situations from that point of view?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons what's allowing him to play so well is he's really not focused on those things. He's focused on preparing to be the best quarterback. And to be honest with you, we're not asking that of him in year one. We want him to focus on doing his job to the best of his ability. Obviously, playing that position, there's an aspect of that comes with it. But I think he's spending all his time and energy on how can he be the best quarterback for Penn State, and we're not asking that of him. It's kind of similar to a couple years ago, when Mike got here and we kind of made some changes to the offense. I think it was that year. I don't think we took Sean Clifford, if I remember correctly. we didn't take him to Big Ten Media Day because I wanted him focused on just doing his job that year. He's doing a nice job, but I think he's doing a nice job of focusing on the things that matter most right now.
Let's go to Mike Gross, and then Donnie, you're on deck.
James, good afternoon. How are you?
You too, Mike.
This is a question about defense, coaching it and playing it. On the one hand, I assume you want guys to be real aggressive and kind of play with their hair on fire and make disruptive plays. And the other side of that is being gap sound and not trying to do too much and being where you're supposed to be. So is there ever an extent to which you have to play those two things off of each other, compromise one in order to, not compromise, but play those two off of each other?
No, because I think they complement each other beautifully, right? Be super aggressive through your gap. Be very aggressive in your zone when the ball comes in your direction. Be very aggressive in your man coverage techniques, in your job and your responsibility. As an offensive lineman, your footwork, your gap, your responsibility on a double team and who you're working to in combination with the tackle or whatever it may be very aggressive on game day based on your preparation. You know, same thing with the running back, same thing with the wide receiver, same thing with the coaching staff. So to me, you know, I don't think what you want to do is talk about them like they are separate entities. Those two things in great football can go hand in hand and can complement one another.
Let's go to Donnie Collins, and then Ben, you're on deck.
How you doing, James?
Good, Donnie. How are you?
Doing well. After the game, you
What's
mentioned...
your hat logo?
It's a catcher's mitt.
Awesome. Which one is this?
It's just a random catcher's mitt.
Oh.
I think it's made of actual glove leather.
Gotcha. Wonderful.
Yeah. It's one of my generic hats. But after the game, you said that you thought Drew last year, as the backup, did a good job preparing as if he was the starter. And Bo talked a little bit about that last week, too. And I'm wondering from a coaching perspective, when you're looking at guys to see whether they're doing a good job of that, what kind of traits do you look for in those players who are doing a good job with it? And is it necessarily an easy transition to make for young guys who are used to starting throughout their high school careers?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard challenge. You know, most of these guys have always been the best players. They've never not been the guy. So it is a huge challenge. Just physically, the love of playing the game, the emotional impact on it, and to be honest with you, the parents struggle with it a lot of times. So yeah, I think that is challenging. But I think it's a good question. You know, I think first of all, I think Bo is wired right. His preparation is excellent. He's a very thoughtful young man. I think he's a very driven young man. And extremely competitive. So it's funny because I think if you asked our players, they would say they're sick of hearing that from me. I talk to the guys all the time. I met with the freshmen yesterday about, that was one of the topics. Are you preparing as if you were the starter right now? Because if you don't, then this time next year, you're going to be upset with your role, because you're not going to be ready. I met with the second-year players on Sunday after practice and had a similar conversation with them. Are you preparing as if you're the starter? So I think it's really an important lesson for all of our guys to learn, not just for football, but in life. You may be the assistant manager one day on your job, and you want to be the manager, and your number gets called, and you get the opportunity to serve that role, and you're not ready. So we talk about it all the time, but I think with Bo, I think we're pretty comfortable and pretty confident that Bo is preparing like a starter, very similar to how I think Drew was last year. And to be honest, I think Bo did last year as well. And I think that's what's allowed him to be successful. What I think we're doing a better job as a coaching staff, and it's not easy to do when you're trying to do everything you possibly can to get your starter ready, and your backup quarterback has a different style, making sure that you're playing to his strengths as well. And a lot of people say they'll do that. A lot of people say that. We're going to play to the strength of our personnel, and they don't. So I think we're doing a really good job of that. I think Coach Yursich is doing a really good job of that, is saying, okay, as a first-time starter, what does Drew do well? And let's play to those strengths, and hopefully that grows every week, the things that he's comfortable and confident with. And then the same thing, okay, Bo, in your role, what are the things that you're comfortable with, and how can we play to your strengths? And they're really separate packages, which is challenging and difficult for us to get them both ready, but also can create challenges and difficulty also on the defensive coordinator and the defenses that we face, because they got to spend time on both.
Let's go to Ben Jones, and then Corey, you're on deck.
Hey, James, greeting from the Midwestern block.
Ben, where are you today?
I'm in Minnesota, so
till when?
Till the weekend, and then I'll be back in town next Tuesday.
So are you going to Illinois?
Yes.
You leave Friday?
Yeah, I'll be there.
You leave Friday or Saturday?
Friday. I'm just going to drive down.
How far to drive?
Like 6 hours and change. So
Oh,
it's
it
not
is
that bad.
6 hours. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
You have to drive through Iowa.
Well,
which
we
is
look
a-
forward to seeing you. Everybody was talking before I came in about how much they miss you being here.
Yeah, I bet they were. You've talked about this being a deep team and maybe one of the deeper ones that you've ever had. How do you think these guys are handling being a deep team? Because I think there have maybe been little breadcrumbs along the way that you would like to see that be a little bit better. And how do you manage that, knowing that you can have all the talent in the world, but if the vibes aren't quite where you want them to be, that might not matter.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were just discussing this as a staff. We got some young players that we're excited about, and they are going to play. But every time you give the guy who's the 3 deep on your roster reps, that's taking away reps from the 2 deep. So it's this balancing act. And I think it's important that everybody kind of embraces that and understands that. But it's amazing. I mean, that's one of the challenges of being a college football coach, right, is you got 85 guys on scholarship. You got right around 120 guys on the team, give or take, depending on the program. And you want everybody in that locker room to feel appreciated, and that's almost impossible. You want all the parents to understand the process and embrace the process. That's almost impossible. So we just try to talk about it as much as we possibly can. I think for the starters and the veteran starters who've played a ton of football, I think they're great with it. It's the guys who are starting for the first time, or the guys that are in the 2 deep, that are fighting and competing for every rep they get. The challenge is, okay, say you get a game like last week, and you're able to get those 3s in the game. Well, that works out really good. And in your mind, well, the 2s will play a ton the rest of this year. Well, they may not. It just depends on how some of these games go, in terms of your rotation, or in terms of how guys have practiced that week, or what makes sense based on the score and the time and the situation. There's so many things that kind of go into it. So just trying to balance it and trying to have as many discussions as you possibly can. That's why your roster management and your game management is critical. And with new staff, I got to make sure everybody's on the same page. So that's one of the reasons why we have a staff meeting every single morning at 7 a.m. to talk about these things, right? To kind of go through, okay, let's go through the depth chart now based on last week. Any changes, okay? On Thursday, let's have a discussion about rotation for the game. What are we thinking? Because I'd want to have this discussion now rather than Saturday morning, and the coordinator sees it differently than you do, or the head coach sees it different than the position coach. Let's work these things out on Thursday and Friday, so it's not Saturday morning right before the game that I have a different expectation, the coordinator has a different expectation, the player has a different expectation. So it's just important that we talk about it as much as we can and get everybody on the same page. The other thing I would say is we have a parent meeting every year before the season starts, and then we do it in the spring as well and try to talk through some of these issues. And I would say for the most part, we've been pretty good there. And it's never going to be as perfect as you'd like it to be.
Last question from the Zoom, Corey Geiger.
Hi, James.
Hey, Corey.
The team has played so well. I'm sure you'd love to win every game by 20, 30 points. But are you as a coach curious how to get maybe into a game where that it's close, tight, you got tough situations, so you can find out some more about your own team and how they may handle these different situations as opposed to what you've had so far?
Yeah, again, that goes back to I just want to get better. I just want to get better every single week. That's also why we challenge them in practice all through training camp and all through this season. It's not just the Saturdays that we're competing and dealing with situations. It's all the time. It's all the time. But I think your point is a good one. We're going to learn more and more about our team every week. And, there's going to be different ways that we're going to have to find ways to win. And good teams will find different ways to win each week based on the opponent, based on the schemes, based on the matchups, based on the challenges, based on the weather, whatever. So, we've been able to check a lot of those boxes during training camp, practicing in the rain. There's a ton of value in that. Even though all the players are looking at the indoor facility, like, why do we have that? Making sure during the season that not only are we getting the scheme-specific work from the D squad, but we're also getting the good-on-good work, from a speed and competition standpoint. Back to that depth, I also think our D squads are better than they've been in the past, and that's helpful. So all these things, going on the road and playing your first road game in the Big Ten, there's value in that. And we'll continue to learn things about our team and, and our program as the year goes on. So, for me, I just want to get better. I want to get better this week in practice, and I want to get better on Saturday. And if we continue to do that, then we'll get those questions answered.
All right, for those.
I'll say a couple words about the game Saturday and last week. Obviously, got news on NCAA decision, and then also our preparation for Western Michigan. So, first of all, I just want to start out by congratulating Sebastian Castro for his first pick and pick 6 and being named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. So certainly a great honor for him, and it was a big play in the game and real spark play for us. So just happy for him. He's, I think, improved every turn in the program. Did a really nice job in the bowl game last year, and is off to a great start this year. So it's great to see him in his senior year playing so well, and just happy for him personally. Certainly good to get the victory. It was hard fought like we expected, and to bring the trophy back here and have it in our facility for a year is a great thing. So really pleased about that. And then also beyond that, I think our team made some strides, really saw some improvement in a lot of different areas. And then always, to go into a tough environment, which we'll have more of those to deal with during the year, come out of the victory. Just really happy. It was hard fought, and we certainly expected that. So pleased with that. Now we move on. Before I get to Western, unfortunately, we received some disappointing news, very disappointing news regarding Noah's appeal to the NCAA, and it was denied. So that thing puts it to rest, and I'm not quite sure what went into the decision. But what I can tell you is that Noah's just a tremendous young man, has been, came back for his 6th year, and just a highly respected leader in our locker room and certainly with our coaching staff. So I feel very, very unfortunate, and our goal is to keep him with the program, keep him close, have him remain as a part of the team. Obviously, he can't play, but he's run a heck of a race, and we're just really disappointed with this whole thing. He's been honest throughout this whole process, very transparent, and I think about as honest as you could be. And one thing I do want to emphasize, he did not break any laws at all. My wife made that point a couple of weeks ago, just an emphasis, and he is guilty of an NCAA violation. He was very upfront about that, and so, that is that. But basically, I don't agree with or understand, quite frankly, the decision, especially when it comes to the severity of the punishment. And to me, that's really disappointing, especially considering our current environment right now, which, believe me, the last couple of months, I'm a lot more in tune to than I had been, certainly. And probably the most disappointing thing, I think the panel that heard the appeal had an opportunity to really do something, make a decision that, to me, would reflect reason and also reflect the changing environment. And, they failed to do so. So that is what it is. We'll move on, and just disappointed on that front, certainly. So as we move on to Western Michigan this week, our captains, same guys. We've got Joe Evans, certainly, and Jay Higgins on defense. Got Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara on offense. Playing Western, they're a 1-1 football team. They've had a good program for quite some time up at Western, made a coaching change this past off season. So got a new head coach and who's got an offensive background. And it's kind of interesting. They got a lot of new faces on the offensive staff. Then defensively, they've retained the coordinator, and Coach Esposito's been there quite some time. So basically, it's the same defensive staff, pretty much a new offensive staff. And then they brought a special teams coach who had been with the head coach at Louisville last year. So he's run the special teams. And basically, just in a nutshell, offensively, it's a little bit of a mix from what we've seen the last 2 weeks. So there's some carryover in terms of preparation, and certainly one of our goals is to try to get off the field a little bit quicker if we can moving forward. That's something we're working on, certainly. And then defensively, just would describe them as a very aggressive, very multiple defense, and very, very active. So, we got a hands full there in terms of preparation. It's kind of interesting. They got hit by the transfer portal, lost some really good football players in the portal. They've also brought some new guys in that I think have really added to the personality of their football team. And specifically, they got a couple guys on defense that were Big Ten players that are really doing a great job. And we're going to really need to account for those guys if we're going to plan to move the ball. So, as we move forward here, I think really it's very similar to every game week. We're going to try and have to match up against the opponent. At least we have 2 games to work off now, so that's helpful a little bit to see this year's team and get a little bit of a feel for what they do, just like they're doing with us. So try to match up with what we're getting ready for, and then the other components we're trying to grow and improve as a football team, and that's all year long, but certainly in the early season it's really critical. And then like any football game, the mental approach is something you have to have that right. And got a little help from the media, I guess, yesterday or Sunday, whenever it was. Saw a headline about the 2-week countdown to our first Big Ten game, and it just kind of reflects, I guess, the world that our players are living in. So it's good for us as coaches just to have that perspective, I think, and just remind our guys that every day is important, every game's important, they all count the same. And so the bottom line is we have to worry about this week, and I think our guys understand that. And I can just top that off a little bit. A lot of talk about 200 the last couple days, and I could throw out a number 2 also, and that would be 2 as in losses to Western Michigan since I've been here. So kind of give a little perspective here about what our chore is this week. So that's kind of that right now. And then the last thing is our kid captain this week is Maggie Larson, who's a young 6-year-old from Urbandale, Iowa, and she'll be with us. Has a genetic condition that they're working on at the University Hospital, and as I've been told, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I will, she's got her stories on the Children's Hospital website, so encourage everybody to take a look at that. Maggie Larson, she'll be here with her 2 brothers, mom and dad, Saturday, so it'll be great to have her with us. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Kirk, when it comes to Noah Shannon, I think he was an NFL guy. He could have gone to the NFL after last season. He's not going to play this season. What would you tell an NFL team about Noah Shannon and maybe why they should take a chance on him or take him?
Yeah, I think they do their evaluations, and the good news is he's got a lot of good film. He's played a lot of good football for us, and as I just said, he's a tremendous young man. He made a mistake, like a lot of guys do, and this is an interesting study on so many levels. And I think I've talked about that enough. But I was just hoping the panel the committee, whoever it is, it's all faceless and nameless, but whoever it was might, dig a little deeper and just take a little bigger picture on this whole thing. So it's unfortunate, but it doesn't change how I feel about Noah, kind of person he is. And I think the key emphasis is there's no law broken here. It's a mistake that I'm guessing a lot of athletes have made, and he just happened to, for whatever reason, turned up in this investigation. So it's unfortunate, and I just think a missed opportunity by the NCAA.
Do you think they made an example of him? Is that what they?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I think I've learned a lot in the last 3 months about, and I'm telling you, now the season started, the NFL season started, I can't get in the car without hearing whatever, whoever the companies are that have. And then, of course, at the end, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800, all that stuff. So, it's just a different world we live in right now, and we seem to be a little slow to react to it. We being, the governing body.
What kind of role will he fill with the team this year?
We'll put him to work in a lot of ways, but just to have his experience, expertise with us on a daily basis, mentor some younger guys. Every year we have young guys that are going through a really tough transition, just like he did 6 years ago, and that's, could be invaluable. So we'll keep him busy, and I think it's good for him to be busy, certainly. And he didn't have to come back for this 6 year. All of us are very appreciative. He, Joe, and brain partner Nico chose to come back. So, it's just unfortunate, really an unfortunate turn of events. But, we'll put him to work, that's for sure.
What can you say about just what his emotions are? I can't imagine what they would be, but just how is he dealing with it, I guess, at this point?
Yeah, I think that's probably the saddest part about this whole thing. And as coaches and as parents, you deal with the humanistic part of things, and you work with these guys as people, and you see all the hardships that they go through, especially student athletes. And nobody's complaining, but it's just it's not for everybody. What they have to do, whether it's the football part of things, the academic, the character, all the stuff that the expectations they have. And it's like injuries. When guys work hard and then have an opportunity taken away from them, whether it's an injury or in this case, I think just maybe a severe penalty. It's hard. It's really hard. And, his parents have lived through this with him, and just as of, his teammates and coaching staff, it's too bad. So it's I don't know, devastating is a strong word, but it's a real blow.
One player you're getting back this week, Jamari Harris. How did he stay involved the last couple of weeks? Was it just normal, typical, just didn't play, or how, and what does he bring to the field?
Yeah, we have a policy, if a guy has some kind of conduct issue and they have a suspension, then they go to the scout team. We didn't do it with Jamari, and I kind of feel the same way about this whole topic. Has really been interesting. So, but yeah, he's been really active. He's been great. He's had a great camp, and basically he's been with our team. Just was with us Saturday. Just didn't play the last 2 weeks. So he's fully engaged, ready to roll, and be good to get him back.
What does he bring? We've seen him.
Experience. Experience. I think he did a great job. A tough circumstance 2 years ago. All of a sudden he was in there, not maybe necessarily ready, but stepped up and did a really good job. And then he's the fun part. Talk about the human side of things. Just to watch the growth that we've seen with him over the his career. It's just been unbelievable. And last year or 2 years, I guess it's now been at least 2 years now. He's really developed into not only a good player but a really strong leader on our team, and it's taken a lot of ownership. And talking about mentoring young guys, he's really been active. Helping younger guys try to get better.
What's Sean's role been moving forward? He looked every bit a starter these last 2 games filling in for him.
Yeah, good news there is it's kind of like Jamari's situation a couple years ago. He got thrown in. I shouldn't say thrown in. He earned his way to the field. We had an opening, and he earned his way and really did a good job. He's played really well for two games now, and the good news for him is he's gained a lot of confidence from his teammates, from the coaching staff. So we came into the season with that being depth at that position, the corner position being a real area of interest for us, and now we have a lot more confidence in him, just like we did when Jamari stepped in, did the same thing.
The block that Jazz had where you took out 2 guys, did you see that live, or did you see that in film, and just what all was your reaction to that?
Yeah, he's really Jazz performed the way he's practiced, I'd say. He runs the same way. And he's blocked well in camp, and that's a big part of being a back, running back. And a lot of people, that keeps guys off the field sometimes. But, that was really impressive. He did a really nice job. And, again, we're not surprised because we see him do it in practice. And it's critical. It's just critical to any play's success. You have to have – if they bring somebody that a back's responsible for, either, we're going to throw the ball hot to the guy or else he's got to block the guy. And just good to see that.
What all kind of was his attitude like, maybe especially earlier last year before he got into the bowl game? Just were there indications you saw of him being able to kind of do?
Yeah, we get to watch guys improve during the course of a year and during practice, and he's done that. And but he's been pretty steady, really. And like I said, that was the first live action where you really saw him hit. It was down in the bowl game. And then, but since then he's done a good job in the spring session and did a good job during camp, and hopefully he's got a lot of good football in front of him right now.
A lot of times with running backs, pass pro is the last thing to come around, whether it's a freshman or a rookie at the next level. But for somebody, a redshirt freshman, to do what he was able to do, and especially a third down blocking situation, to kind of contort his body to make sure he didn't, let him make it to his quarterback. I mean, is that rare, or not extraordinary, but just different for somebody that young to do something like that?
Yeah, he's interesting to that point. To me, he plays bigger than he is. Like physically, he's a physical player, blocking and running. But he's not, I wouldn't describe him as a big back, but he plays big, if that makes sense. And some big backs don't play so big. But it's a good trait. He's got a real hardness to him, and whether it's blocking, running, and having an ability to make the yards you need, and that's a critical thing.
What's his personality like?
He's great to, really easy to get along with. I don't know how I'd describe it other than just he's very pleasant. Just a good young guy. Comes from a really big family. He's a young kid in a big family, and his dad's a diver. A little fun trivia for you, which surprised me. Jazz doesn't dive, as far as I know.
Cade came in here and said it's the best he's felt in a month. He said his practice, first time he's had a game week practice in like a year. What does that open up the playbook more? What does that help? How does that just help your offense going forward?
Time will tell in terms of opening up the playbook, but that's encouraging. He said something to me Thursday night. I bumped into him in here. He and Eric were actually leaving. They were watching film, and they were leaving the building. But he indicated that he was feeling like he was gaining ground at that point, and that was encouraging. And we're in a lot better position today than 2 weeks ago, which is really encouraging too. And with injuries, you just never know how they're going to go. Everybody heals differently, so that's encouraging. But all that being said, you still got to keep your fingers crossed and hope that he keeps climbing. But certainly, the fact that he can practice now is huge because he's missed a lot of time, and the timing component is so important. And it's important because he's not like he's played with our guys a lot, So it's this is the first time he's done any team stuff. Was in August on. So there's a lot of work to do right now, and that's encouraging for me. I talk about the potential of our team. I think that's a big part of it. If we can keep him out there, keep him practicing. Common sense would say, we'll probably play better, with him getting more work. And then if he's more physically able to move around a little bit, that'd be a good thing for us too.
How quickly do you think he can catch up after all at this time?
I don't know if I can predict it, but the good news is he's played. It's not like a guy who has never played, and that's a big difference sometimes. So when older guys get hurt or they miss time for whatever reason, at least their road back is usually a little quicker, a little smoother. Because they have experience, as opposed to a guy who's never, just doing it for the first time. It's a little different.
So with the offense, do you feel like it took another step against Iowa State?
I do. Yeah, I do. I feel saw a lot of things that were more encouraging, and we're still not there yet, but we're a more mature group certainly than we've been the last 2 years overall, and so it's just. But you got to keep going, and last week was a unique challenge. The kind of defense they play. I said it a week ago at this time, they've done a great job since 18 on defense, and Saturday was no different. We expected that. And then this is a different preparation. It's taken me a little while just to make it make sense in my mind a little bit, because just how multiple they are. They throw a lot of looks at you, and so trying to make it make sense and make it make sense to our players, that's a challenge, and then you got to go out and try to execute against it.
The offense, it seems like you guys have started hot these last two games, cooled off at the start of the second half. What do you do to address that?
Yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the answer. Yeah, I mean, we haven't started well either side of the ball the second half. We in the first game, they just took it right down the field on us, and last week we were out. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we got to figure something out there.
With Noah for sure out for the rest of the year, what have you seen from YA and Aaron kind of filling in that spot?
Yeah, I guess the good news is, YA missed spring, but he's looked good in August, and he's playing his best football right now, which is what you'd expect. He's been here a while. So he's continuing to do a good job. And then I thought Pitt was one of our most improved guys last spring. He's been a good guy all the way, but last spring is when he finally looked like he's gaining a little bit of traction as a player, and that continued throughout August. So again, that's just that building that base and learning how to play a little bit. And so I think we're in a decent situation with 4 guys there, but you want to rotate. So hopefully everybody will just keep working and keep improving.
Coach, Nick DeYoung said that your teams typically tend to get better towards the back half of the season offensively. How important is this opportunity to kind of get things going this week, just building off of what we saw the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, every week's important for us and for the whole team, really. And I think it's a fair statement by Nick. It's just our whole team, our best teams have gotten better progressively during the season. Our not so best teams haven't maybe done as good a job of that. So that's really the challenge. As I said earlier, it's a twofold thing because you're trying to match up for what you think your opponent's going to do and how they might approach you, and then the other part is just what can you do yourself to make yourself better. And a lot of that's experience, but experience isn't any good unless you put it to use, and that's the key. It's a mental process there.
How important was it for you guys to hit the 100-yard mark against a really good defense? I mean, in the last year plus, you've played 8 defenses ranked in the top 14 in the country, and so even your trajectories kind of are masked by the opponent. But to get to that mark and look successful, and you see Connor smiling, after the game, is that an important part for this offense, just to have success and feel good about itself?
Yeah, it is. And you bring up Connor, it's a good point. And we talked about it after the game, the trap block he had on the Connor play. And it's just part of the process, the maturity. He's a much better player today than he was 2 years ago, but he was playing 2 years ago, probably before he was ready, and as part of our circumstance. But I think that's what we're seeing with the whole group, really, overall, at least the guys that have been here. I think they're more mature now, and they're practicing better and seeing some success out there on the field. And I think if we just keep our foot on the gas, hopefully we'll see it in a bigger scale.
DeYoung has really been the one from that 2019 offensive line recruiting class who's really shined. What is it that he was able to do to go from walk-on to be as reliable as he's been this year?
Run the race. I told him, I think it was 3 years ago now, coming off the field one day on the far end of the indoor, just that I thought I saw something in him, and I'm not sure he saw it. But again, it's just it's a process guys have to go through, and not everybody. It doesn't always come to reality for everybody, but at some point I think he figured out, maybe he can do this and do it successfully, and with his skill set. But there's something about him. It just kind of stood out early, and it was just a matter of him working through it and finding his path there. He's dealt with a lot of injuries too, like a lot of guys, and but last spring was the first time he ran the whole race, 15 days, every practice, and really you could see the confidence growing. He was more consistent with his techniques, and you could just see it growing. And again, I wish we could get there faster. I don't know a way to do that other than just it's hard work, it's dedication, it's a guy sticking with it, and he's certainly done that. Credit goes to him on that, and I think he's starting to maybe enjoy the game a little bit more because it's more fun when you're a good player.
You mentioned Bo Stevens might be back this week. Will he be back this week and in the rotation?
Yeah, not in the rotation. Well, he might be in the rotation right now. We'll see. He's just kind of getting back. He missed significant time, but he is on the field the last 2 days. Getting him in there working, so I don't know if it'll be this week, next week, but he's going to hopefully be able to stay healthy and get back into the picture here a little bit.
Dejon Parker,
he's gaining ground. Yeah, he's still not there yet, but gaining ground. He's practicing. But he's just missed such a huge amount of time. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry, can I come right back to you?
Yeah. Kirk, when Caleb Brown announced his commitment to you guys, there was a lot of excitement. I know he's kind of been in the wide receiver rotation, and the wide receivers, I think, off to a slower start against Iowa State, whether it be game plan or anything else, I guess, how would you assess the wide receiver room and Caleb Brown as a whole, how they're kind of staying with the process, being patient, and waiting for those opportunities?
I like what I see at the room. I think, again, Nico and Deontay are our most experienced guys. They're both practicing well, and Seth made a great catch. That was, to me, a huge play. I mean, those are the kind of plays you got to make if we're having an offensive team. Went up and snagged it and for a first down right in front of our bench. But it's not always going to be the wow plays, but you just got to make some routine plays, or maybe a little bit beyond routine. But I really think Seth and Caleb are very similar. They're both younger guys. We didn't see anything of them in the spring. One wasn't here and the other guy was hurt. But both of them have done a really nice job since August. And probably the only difference is Seth has played a little bit more receiver, whereas this is new for Caleb. But he's a great guy, great attitude, and he has a good ability. So I think, if everybody just is patient and just let this thing, go as it goes, it's going to be fine. But all four of those guys, see them all being active in the rotation.
Kirk, pass rush only 1 sack so far. Is that more of a function of what you're facing versus production?
A little bit of each, I think. Yeah, a little bit of each. And then how we're playing defense, too. We're sometimes we're more geared to stop the run, or at least, or play both run and pass, as opposed to just taking off and going after the guy. Third and long, obviously you're chasing, but and then sometimes the ball comes out. There are different factors that go into. I'm not worried about it. The guys are working hard, and I think we have guys that can get there.
Jake again said that.
As always, appreciate you guys joining us today. Short week, we had to get this thing turned around pretty quickly. Today is the equivalent of a Wednesday practice for us, and so our guys got in Sunday. We practiced Sunday night, which was a Monday practice, and then yesterday, Tuesday, today obviously Wednesday. We're well past looking back. The Charlotte game, the thing I would say in reference to that game is that obviously, the things we needed to do to win the game were necessary, but they won't be sufficient. And what I mean by that is that, we did some things, we showed character, we overcame adversity, all things that are necessary, but they won't be sufficient for us to be able to get the type of wins and go to where we want to go as a team. And so we put the Charlotte game behind us pretty quickly. It was good to see our guys respond the right way. Obviously, Virginia is a familiar foe, a former ACC rival. Having been here at Maryland for over 15 seasons and been a part of some of those games, they're important games for us. And if you look at the type of scheduling we've tried to do, this game is in great alignment with how I'd like to see us schedule. Obviously, being in the Big Ten is a tough enough conference, but we do have some historical rivals that are always great for our fans to have the opportunity to compete against, and Virginia is one of them. And I know our fans are pretty passionate about that rivalry. Going into this game, I'm looking for us to clean up some of the mistakes that showed up early. We're a team that operates better when we play with great pace, when we start fast, and a week ago we didn't, and so we want to try to get that corrected, and we want to focus on coming out with the right type of energy and the right type of enthusiasm Friday night here in the Shell. And again, I'm hoping that we have an electric environment that our players can feed off of, that extra element of having a loud crowd here supporting us. Friday night gives us another opportunity to continue our quest to show that we're not the same old Maryland, and I know our players are excited once again to be able to play in front of a national TV audience here at home, and it again puts the university at the forefront where everyone across the country has an opportunity to see just what a great place we have here in the DMV. Our game captains this week, Emilio Moran, Kobe Thomas, and Tarheeb Steele will lead us. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Good afternoon, Mike. Anthony Colandrea, their freshman quarterback, in his first start last Saturday, threw for almost 400 yards. What have you guys seen on tape? What makes him special?
Yeah, he's a little bit like a young Leah. He's one of those guys that extends plays. He's, he continues to. He doesn't give up on plays. You saw him make some big plays for them. Obviously, a week ago, as a true freshman, to see what he was able to do was pretty impressive. Musket may be back, so we're kind of preparing for both of those guys. But I was really impressed with the true freshman out of Florida with how he was able to come in and kind of provide a spark for them.
Hey, Mike, a two-parter for you. The first, you mentioned a little bit in your opening remarks, just the significance for you of renewing the rivalry in terms of the health and enthusiasm of college football in the DMV. And the second part is, how well have you gotten to know Tony Elliott over the years, and how would you kind of characterize your relationship, given you both have been offense coordinators at high-profile schools previous?
Yeah, obviously, the first one is the rivalry and what it means and the health of it. Well, you know, much like playing West Virginia, who's a longtime rival of the University of Maryland, UVA is one of those games as well. And I know our fans get excited, especially when they're our old ACC foes, to have the opportunity to compete against them. And I know we do it in some of our other sports here. So to be able to have this game on our schedule was something that I wanted. That, you know, obviously because of the proximity and because of some of the history behind this game. As far as my relationship with Tony, I've gotten to know Tony really well. Obviously, my time at Alabama, him at Clemson, we got to know each other there. He won the Broyles Award the year before I won, so he was there to present it to me. And then also had the opportunity, you know, through the coalition, he was part of our first academy where we paired qualified minority assistants with athletic directors across the country and to mentor, and Tony was part of that first academy, and hopefully the coalition, in my opinion, played a small role in helping prepare him for the opportunity he has now. So a lot of respect for Tony and the program he has. His offensive coordinator, Des Kitchens, is also a guy that has been part of the coalition, and he's part of the academy that we have this year. And so been really impressed with the way he's managed his team through some of the tragedy they had a year ago. And, you know, Tony's one of those all-around good guys.
Hey there, Coach. You talk about
Charlotte?
wanting that electric atmosphere, that electric environment. Do you notice a difference in the way your players play when you have a packed house and when they're hearing and feeding off those fans?
You know, I don't notice it in the moment, but when you go back and we evaluate the game and I kind of evaluate how we started, you get a feeling of the impact of what the crowd can have. You know, we try to prepare our team to not allow external things be the motivation behind it, but it sure feels good to run out in the first quarter and see a packed student section like we saw the first week. And, you know, I was impressed with the student section even through the pregame weather that we faced this past weekend. And I'm hoping Friday night is one of those electric atmospheres which allows us to really put our best foot forward. Those things have more impact than the non-football things, recruiting, and those other areas. Putting us at the forefront on national TV, so it shows really well, and I'm hoping that we can, you know, have that type of crowd and that type of energy.
Hey, Coach.
What's up, Sean?
Obviously, this rivalry, it's not like what it was before, but can you kind of think back for us and kind of give us some insight on, you know, when this rivalry was really cooking back in the day, what did it feel like the week of a UVA Maryland game?
Yeah, I mean,
what were those games like?
They were, you know, during my time, you know, I was here obviously as a youngster out in the parking lots of back then Byrd Stadium when Virginia came into play, and it was always one of those games that it was competitive. I can remember being here in, I want to say 1999, when we had a chance. We were 5-6, and we played them here at home, and Lamont Jordan, I think, broke the record here, had over 300 yards rushing in a game, and, you know, we end up losing. Billy McMullen catching the fade in the left corner of the end zone to win the game and end our bowl opportunities. And, you know, I know when Coach Friedgen got here, being part of his staff, the hatred that he had for UVA was real. And, you know, I haven't talked to him this week yet, but I'm sure that he still, you know, gets pretty pumped up about it. So, you know, for me as a coach, hearing Ralph talk about it obviously showed me just how important a game it has been. And so I expected, you know, when I had a chance to put them on a schedule, it was something that I thought would be good for this area and for our program.
Do you still feel that hatred?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rivalry. I mean, give it the respect that it deserves. I mean, there's been a lot of history, a lot of years of that game, and, you know, I've got respect for those type of games. And there's no doubt that it's still a rivalry, but more for our fans than it is for us because of us being part of the Big Ten now.
Hey, Locks, back here. Bringing up those memories, I know we're getting to the point now where some of the players might not even barely remember Maryland in the ACC. Has there been some discussions this week about, hey, this means a lot to the fans? Like, how are you kind of relaying that to the players on this team about the rivalry?
Yeah, because of the quick turnaround, I had to use my time wisely, and so for us, it's the next opponent. We didn't put, any more things into the preparation. Now, as we finish up here, as we get closer to game time, obviously, we have meetings where we talk a little bit about the opponent, and, we had our scouting report stuff, which we tried to, again, because of how quick the turnaround was for us. But our players will understand it, and I think they'll have a better feel for it once the ball kicks off.
And then one more for you real quick. I know you've mentioned a couple times, you always talk about the standard of starting fast. Is there a certain way you guys have emphasized that or are going to emphasize that in practice next week to prepare for a fast start this Friday?
Being able to start fast goes back to our players and the consistency. One of the things that jumped out to me is that some of the things that showed up in our lack of a fast start showed up in practice a week ago. And so for the emphasis for us, we talk about on the offensive side of the ball, one of the things I thought we struggled with in the Charlotte game early was just getting lined up and trying to be able to play at the pace that we feel most comfortable playing at. And, when you got guys not lined up at the right place and we're yelling from the sideline or the right people aren't in there, those things are the things that kind of slowed us down. And so we put an emphasis on to be able to start fast, usually simplicity needs to be part of it. And so, again, we want to simplify and make sure that we are very clear as to what it is we want to get accomplished in all three phases. And to me, that's what allows you to play fast.
Oh, Mike, you know how productive you guys can be on the ground. Is there a sense of maybe relying on the ground game to help settle the offense in the early stages of a game?
Again, whether we run it or throw it, we've shown efficiency at being able to do both at times, and I just think it comes back to being able to do both really well. We're not a team that, from an identity standpoint, that goes in and says, hey, we want to be a run team or we want to be a throw team. We want to be the team that does both of them really well, and when the defense presents certain structures, have that ability to take advantage of it. And we were able last week, I thought, because of the tempo we started playing with after we kind of got going, to wear down Charlotte a week ago, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it will be sufficient for us this week. And so the goal is for us to be good at both throwing the ball and running the ball and protecting the ball and creating explosive plays on offense.
Hey, Mike.
George, what's up?
Not much. You were here the last time in 2013 when Maryland last played Virginia, and fourth quarter comeback, Caleb threw for over 300 yards and everything. You've talked about your experience with the rivalry. I wonder, for kids who now in an age of conference realignment 10 years on maybe don't necessarily have those same ties, do you or anybody else kind of impart some words of wisdom to how much this meant to the program and to the fan base and to the area?
You know what, you generally do, but as I've said earlier, this turnaround was one. You play 7:30 at night. We obviously didn't play real well. I think I got to bed around 4 o'clock Sunday morning, just in time to wake up and go to church, and then it's getting this game put to bed by 3 o'clock, and then game planning from 4 to 6:30 or whenever we had our team meeting to be ready for practice. So haven't had a lot of time to do the history of it, but what we're trying to do is clean up some of the things that showed up in game 2 for us to make sure our team's prepared to play really well. As I said, when we get closer to the later part of our preparation, the Friday before game is when we kind of have a motivational talk, and I'm sure there'll be some things to explain just how important this game is to a lot of people. This generation is not growing up on rivalries because of the realignment, and it's just where we are today in the landscape of college football. But we'll try to do our part to make sure our players understand that, number one, it is the next opponent, but this one is something pretty special to a lot of people.
Mike, circling back on the run game a little bit, I know it's a small sample size, but Virginia's had some issues this year stopping the run. They're last in the ACC. You guys were able to crank it up against Charlotte. How much do those opponents factor into your game planning?
It factors in. We look to see what the weaknesses are and try to attack them. But again, they know what their fleas are as well, and much like us, we look to see when we self-scout what things we don't do well, understanding that people are going to try to attack it, and so each week you work to improve in the areas that you aren't strong in. So I would imagine they've been working on trying to stop the run game. For us, obviously, to be able to do both is still optimal for how we want to play on offense. Balance is not running at 50% or throwing at 50%. It's being able to do both very efficiently, and we still haven't had one of those games where they both have really tied together. And hopefully we can put one together this week.
Hey, Coach.
What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm good.
So I've noticed that, especially in the secondary and the defensive line, you guys have kind of been versatile with the defense. I know Bo and Dante have kind of worked both in the box and out of the box, and then you guys have used a lot of guys in the interior and then over a tackle. Is that something you kind of focus on, both in recruiting and then with the game plan?
So the question you're asking is using the multiple players, or is it multiple
with the versatility
schemes?
of players. Is that something you focus on both in recruiting?
Yeah, you have to. In this day and age, with people playing with tempo, especially on the defensive side of the ball, how it affects defenses. We saw a week ago the effect our tempo had maybe on Charlotte in the second half. And, you're good players. You want those guys playing really strong in the fourth quarter. And so, B-Dub and the defensive staff has done a really good job of rotating players. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that, the reason guys transfer typically is because they don't play, and so we try to find and create roles for all the players in our program, whether it be on special teams, offense, or defense. And so And because of the type of program we are, we're always trying to develop, and you don't develop your players on the bench. And so we try to find ways to create roles that allow each player to have some ownership in our program. And when we're able to do that, that's where I find us at our best.
Hey, Coach. Good to see you. I know that going into the Charlotte game, you had mentioned the offensive line obviously wouldn't be playing as many players as they did in Week 1, but I think there was 8 different players that played this week. But I guess kind of how would you assess kind of going into Week 3, how that unit's kind of gelling together a little bit?
Coming along good, coming along as expected. The more they play, the better they will be. We kind of made a change there at the center position, and we continue to create competitiveness there, which I think makes us better. I saw both Eric and Mike Purcell get better a week ago at the center position. Didn't play as many than we played, obviously, the way that game played out. But we thought going into it, we wanted to try to lock in and see what that unit looked like playing consistently together. That's one of those groups that when you're substituting in there, you don't necessarily get a good feel for the gel and how they complement each other. And so, we're getting some guys back healthy this week and expect Gotti to be able to play for us, and that adds another element and gives us a chance to continue to evaluate.
Hey, Coach, with it being a Friday game, does that change anything for you guys with regarding to recruiting, just because players who might be able to visit now have their games to play?
Not really. We invite the kids. This area, we do have kids that maybe play on Saturday, and so those guys typically, Friday night, they want to be off their feet. It is what it is. Yeah.
And then with Jayshon Barham, 2 sacks, has there ever been a discussion with you guys about potentially moving him full-time to being an edge rusher?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Coach, one of the players stepping up in the secondary there is true freshman Alex Moore. Obviously, he was able to save that touchdown and kind of help force the interception there at the end against Charlotte. What have you seen from him so far, and what sort of gotten him on the field so quick?
Yeah, he was able to save a touchdown that he should have prevented the big play from happening. And that's what we've seen is, as a young player, he's shown spurts of being able to be a guy that we can count on. But he's going to have some mistakes that happen that just come along with being developed. And I would say he probably played better game 1 than he did game 2. He got a little nicked up in game 1, so it's really his first game playing banged up, and he's starting to learn that every week you got to bring the A game. But Alex, he's one of those guys. David Wingate, I got to give Pilati. Those 2 guys coming from Pilati have been impact freshmen for us, and I've been pleased to see the way those guys have played for us.
Hey, Coach. It seems like Caden Prather's kind of already become one of Talia's favorite targets. You've noted before kind of the downfield big play abilities he has. Just what have you made of their connection so far, and what does he provide for an offense as a deep threat?
Yeah, I think Leah makes friends with all those receivers because they all know that if they want the ball, they want to make friends with them. Caden's no different. You know, Jay Sean Jones, I think, led us with 7 targets. I think Caden had 5. You know, much like on the defense, we try to be diverse with how we spread the ball around. Obviously, Caden's one of those guys that when we game plan, we say, hey, how can we get Caden involved to have a positive impact on the game because of the skill he has, and I think he's shown it the last couple of weeks, and we're hoping that he continues to get better, and as the chemistry develops between him and the quarterback, we'll see consistency in that big playability.
My question was a little similar to Varun's, but how does the short week kind of affect like game prep in general or getting the team ready?
I think the biggest way it affects is that I don't get a lot of sleep, so I get a little cranky by the end of the week because, you know, burning both ends of the candle. Like I said, you know, a late Saturday night game. Luckily for us, we didn't have to travel back. We tried to let our players sleep in, and we pushed everything back about an hour or 2 Sunday, which gave us a little more time as a staff to get the film graded, to get all the quality control reports done so we can put Charlotte to bed and then proceed, obviously, into game planning. Fortunately, we have the type of staff or enough staff that we can do a lot of the prep work early. So some of the younger coaches in our program maybe started on UVA, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday a week ago, just so that we could turn it around pretty quickly. But for us, today's Wednesday, and I know all you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy because it's Tuesday, but this is Wednesday, and our players are seeing it that way, and Friday will be Saturday. So we try to keep it consistent with our weekly prep and just know that the players lost the day of rest where they typically Sunday is their day off. They'll go 13 straight days before they get a break, which will be this Saturday.
Take 2 more. Kind of building on that, do you like the change of pace of Friday night games, or
no?
You much prefer the routine of Saturday?
I am a creature of habit, as most coaches are, but I understand the benefit of it. So do I like it? No. Do I understand the benefit of us playing on Friday night, national TV? Yeah, so the benefits outweigh maybe some of the things that it affects in terms of how we prepare.
Yeah, Coach, as someone who probably knows the Tagovailoa family as well as anybody, Tua's developed into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, or certainly the hottest. Talk about Leah compared to his brother, similarities. Do you see the same kind of growth? Just curious.
Yeah, they're 2 totally different personalities. I've been on the record as saying, you know, Tua's one of those guys that's a people pleaser. He's a guy that, you know, he's going to play really well when he knows that the people around him, you know, relationships are important. And not for Leah as if he doesn't care about relationships, but Leah's a whole different type of animal. Leah's a really emotional, aggressive, you know, I don't know if he's not one of those guys that when he walks into the room that everything lights up. He's kind of one of those guys that comes into the room, figures out what he needs to do, gets it done, and then he's out. So 2 different personalities, but when you look at the quarterback play of those 2, both really accurate passers, both great footwork, both have the ability to extend plays. I think Leah's maybe able to scramble around a little bit better, maybe a little extend plays a little better and become more of a runner, whereas Tua is one of those guys that gets it out quick and he extends plays in the pocket. But the one common denominator is Nalu Tagovailoa, the dad who has raised both those guys to be quarterbacks. They had great foundational training at the position, and you see both of them having great success wherever they've been.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.